So with that, you heard me say that we couldn't do this literally, or certainly as well, without our partners and underwriters. And Infosum is top of the board on that. So Infosum's UK offices, actually, their expanded offices are about 500 meters from where I'm sitting right now, right down the street. So with that, one of their top colleagues is Greg Morton, who runs the show for North American sales at Infosum. We've been privileged to have helped them a couple of times over the last 2 years and seen them certainly grow quite a bit with their fantastic methodology and helping themselves and a lot of their clients stay and get on the right side of history, as we say. And Greg's going to be talking with all due respect to our friends at J&J, who we work with quite a bit, say one of the smartest people in all of pharma marketing, if not digital marketing. So no pressure, Paul. Paul Gelb, who we've been lucky to know for a number of years now. Two great gentlemen, take it away, Greg.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for that. Paul, it's great to see you here, and I look forward to this discussion. So I'm going to start off just a quick opening here, and today we're going to talk about, there's 3 topics here of this, but we're going to talk about identity. And we in the marketing and the advertising and our ecosystem are really dependent upon identity, right? We know that it's a critical piece, and today we rely on a lot of different identity utilities that are aligned on using the cookie as the ID, right? And today we kind of live in this centralized approach where we all use a lot of different technologies like onboarding and DMPs, et cetera. And we at Infosum, and this is kind of my opening, is that we see this shifting. We see a shift of moving this to a decentralized approach where a brand's PII starts to become the currency. And then really a new ecosystem evolving where brands and publishers and even other interesting data partnerships will start to blossom, and will want and you want to collaborate in a new way using your PII, your own first party data as that kind of centralized currency. And that shift is really what we saw at Infosum, and really kind of built our technology. So with our approach, brands can confidently, securely, and in a privacy safe way make those better and more insightful PII to PI connections with partners via Infosum's patented technology and our non-movement of data approach. So that's kind of, and I've been in Infosum for about 1.5 years now, and I can tell you, like, this is real. This is a whole shift that's happening in our industry right now. It's pretty exciting, and I'm excited to introduce Paul. And we've had some really good discussions thus far, but I'm excited to take this and moderate this discussion here. Paul, do you want to do a quick introduction for yourself?
Sure. First of all, thanks for the opportunity to chat today. It's a really pertinent and interesting topic, and really excited to dive in here. So I'm Paul Gelb. I oversee our activation investment team, so our in-house ad buying across 21 different digital channels, as well as all of our partnerships with every major platform, media and data partner.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great, Paul. And I want to start with a couple things here. One, but as you think about within your world, within Bayer, and your OTC focus, and within the organization, and you think about this post-cookie world, like, how far along would you say, and would you tell the audience here, of you transitioning to a first-party data strategy and approach?
So when we look at data and digital and how we operate in marketing, it's not a static or finite initiative or effort. It's something that is always ongoing. What I will say is that we've been really fortunate to have leadership come in, and people's career path has not been necessarily as close to technical media buying, ad tech, et cetera, but they really leaned in and focused on being able to be conversant in the topic and really line up and lean in their support of our plan, which we were formulating back in 2018, and how we wanted to approach changes in the overall ecosystem. We, in many cases, don't have a magic bean, silver bullet approach. We tend to have multiple tactics and levers that we apply to get the objective done that we want to get done, and the ones that have the right mix for us. So what I will say is, with the talent that we have, the partnerships that we built with key players over time, treating them like key partners in which we're growing the pie, learning from each other, and just really amazing talent, top to bottom, in terms of their technical expertise that we have in the team. We've not been disrupted by any changes in the ecosystem to date. And we've been able to follow through on that over a very long period of time for a brand and a marketing organization, at least in my experience, working across very large companies, and how those parts of the organization may not necessarily have ongoing access to resource or capital, or the ability to maintain that focus on a larger term project, and have that tendency to go towards click, checkbox, what's the sexiest thing. I think we've been fortunate to really flesh out a starting point plan, soup to nuts, and then the support of leadership to go after it with the right talent in the right way.
That's great. Yeah, and kind of shifting then to your customer. So you think about internally, it sounds like you're making some really good strides to your first party strategy, but how have you built or thought about the relationship with the customer on the OTC brand side as you think about collecting first party data from them?
So I was at Bayer when our leadership team for North America joined a few years back, and the first question, the focus of all those kickoff meetings, was the customer, how well we knew them. Our mission is to serve the underserved, those who are having disparate outcomes in health, and that's only more pronounced today. So the stakes could not be higher, and you only are successful in how well you know your customers, understand them, what communication is going to work, and how do we really engage and get adoption of self-care. And if you just started doing that when some of these new tools came about, then you're definitely behind the 8 ball. And I think you'd probably struggle to invest enough even in new tools if it wasn't important for you to lean in before panels, getting out and just knowing and speaking to your customers or consumers, talking to your distribution and retail partners about their customers and what is going on, listening. There have been numerous levers, and I think if you're not taking advantage of all those, as well as building up a really top-notch team that focuses on consumer insights and analytics, and brand managers that truly love their customers and their brand and the value proposition they give to them, that's what you need to do first. And there's just going to be always newer tools to get that done. But the key is making sure that you're open and flexible, and your goals and objectives are pretty clear, and how they serve your larger business and mission.
That's great. That's great. And when we talk about that relationship with the consumer, we always go to the privacy, right? And one thing at Infosum we always talk about is all the different privacy legislation and compliance laws that are out there, and really how to help future-proof you as an organization. We've done some things within our platform to do that, kind of put guardrails around so you're not violating any privacy laws and you're always privacy compliant. So within your world, Paul, I guess one question is, because there's so much fragmented regulatory requirements out there in legislation landscape, like how have you thought about that as an organization, understanding you want to have that relationship directly with the consumer and really collect their data? What are your thoughts there?
Oh, one, I remember having a conversation a few years ago where someone made a recommendation that we should be creating and producing content and building out an audience from that content that's similar to the number of people that you can reach with media today. And so if you do the numbers, and my response was just doing back of the envelope, that if we are creating media that drives an audience of $100 million, we probably shouldn't be just selling our product. We should probably be selling media, because the margin is fantastic. And there are only so many places that can allow you to reach 100 million people a week. Now, there's not reached scarcity, but it's a pretty select group, and they've all done pretty well, as they're pretty much the most valuable companies in the world. So I don't think you should have the expectation that you're going to, or that you even need to have a direct relationship with every customer, every person who's going to buy your product. I think it's more important than ever to be listening and supporting and engaging with your customers wherever you can. There's an added layer in health as well as finance of regulatory and some additional hoops or limitations. And first and foremost, utmost important, just in terms of the culture and history and just the value of the brands that built up, that we continue to execute in the right way, so that we dot our I's, cross our T's, and are thinking ahead of time. With that said, really focusing on where you are able to have that engagement, not just isolating it to one way or the other, or just thinking that you have to have direct engagement to learn or understand your customer. There's other stuff that you're doing at an aggregate level. And if you look now with the new privacy changes, those that have been able to execute well and were successful at not an individual profile, granular, direct response marketing approach, and even the platforms that were a little bit more on the brand side that are now doing more DR and are better placed and are able to actually optimize, execute at a very high level, but an aggregate level, leveraging and sort of extrapolating from certain insights and certain direct relationships and information.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And I think, one of the things was the struggle is there's so many different country by country regulations. And so have you found any kind of solutions or alternative ways to kind of deal with just that kind of difficult world that we're in, with all these different privacy regulations? Australia's launching a new law, got different states in the US. Like, how do you think about that?
And I think in general, if you're set up to have something that's hard or where there's complexity, for that to be an advantage for you to be able to execute, then you're in a good spot. I'm at a company that's hundreds of years old, started at the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, but it's had a deep culture in data and science, and operating in these spaces that are regulated and complicated on a global level. And it really is something I think you need to have at a cultural level and an operational level, in between your global team and your individual markets, where there's a bit of communication and a bit of investment and resources, and being proactive, getting ahead of it, and supplementing where it doesn't make sense for an individual market to figure it out, when there could be a holistic engagement at a global level, or where it really makes sense to really dive in and figure out how to do something on a market level because it may be unique to China or the US, et cetera. Also having that flexibility within global and the ability to get the right budget and SWAT team together to execute just that market that may not be applicable. So if you have that culture, you have that sort of system and expectation set up, and how you fund it and how you operate, and communication stays open, and it's not just one-off, but it's something that you're working on ongoing, then these things are ongoing and easy to address because you've done it before with that team in those ways. And it's just another thing to learn on how you execute within your market in a regulated space.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. And this, I'm going to kind of shift gears a little bit, and this is near and dear to Infosum's heart, but there's this new world or new term in the industry that's starting to percolate called data clean rooms. And they've become kind of part of a lot of different discussions as the next solution for advertisers, next technology that's going to pop, et cetera. So what are your thoughts on them? What use cases do you find that you've used? It's been, term's been around for a while, that you've used to help, usage of a clean room. Like, what have you used that internally to help you solve some specific problems? So some examples.
Yeah, well, it's challenging sometimes for me to share examples strictly on something that's this important and nuanced. But what I can say is that it is incredibly exciting in terms of a technology and a solution. If you look at, again, our goal and our mission, it's ultimately to serve the underserved in healthcare for all. And in so many cases in business, and I tend to maybe not be as flashy or let's see as other marketing speakers, in that I really do believe that we're in a time of marketing and marketer accountability, and a lot of the solutions and paths for success are really about just how you operate well, regardless of being in marketing or another part of the organization. I think what's gone is the days of just being nice to everyone so they're not mad at you to get senior enough and you just talk in meetings about something that no one will know whether it worked or not, but is your opinion and an idea. I think what we have brought about in a nice window of time is marketer accountability. And what we're delivering on is just so important. It's to me really exciting to see that it addresses something that we found is a big hurdle to achieving that goal, which is that there are answers and there are solutions, but they're often in silos of data that have never been able to be combined, where you spend all your time, all your bandwidth, all your mind, power, and talent on data leakage and privacy concerns, et cetera. The more that we have these environments and setups of technology that addresses that at scale and in a standardized way, in a right way, then you could just really focus on what has been trapped in silos of information and what overlaps or combination of data, whether it's with retail partners or other data providers that we've never been able to put those two things together. That could provide unbelievable insights and opportunities to create the right messaging and engage in the right value proposition to really get that adoption of self-care, and again, then having much better health outcomes for a larger part of the population.
Yeah, I love that, and I love the focus on health outcomes and like how you using a clean room or a data collaboration technology to improve health outcomes. That's amazing. And we've been and you touched on it, like the whole focus of retail media. We've been tracking that here at Infosum. We've had a lot of success in this space. But as you think about that and your relationship with the retailers that you have who sell your products, what do you think the next phase of this retail media network industry looks like? What's your view there?
Well, I think what you have is a new revenue stream and a new opportunity to drive margin for those businesses that will allow for efficiency and essentially, ideally, opportunities to deliver more products and at a price and a efficiency in terms of product to market that makes it accessible to a lot more people where it wasn't, and gets that adoption up and retains that adoption that we saw in self-care across the pandemic. So I think it's definitely something that is here to stay, that is growing the pie, and again in a particularly really interesting and beneficial way where it gets self-care potentially in the hands of a lot more people by really building the pie from having a new source of value in the ecosystem for our partners and for us. They've been great partners in being distributors, amazing relationships that our team has with our customers, and truly is partnership and collaboration. So now that they're entering in this space, have found them to have hired up really technical people who want to get this right and do it in the right way. So I think we've been expecting it for a while, but are excited that it's here to stay.
Yeah, absolutely. And any other kind of new, media partnerships evolving that you're thinking of in the future?
I think in general, if you look at the years of the pandemic, we have supply chain challenges creating a lot of noise in the ecosystem, changes in privacy and attribution. And so it becomes all that more important to try and figure out what's going on and to take that step that can be uncomfortable, but looking at each channel and separating what is the potential and ceiling of performance of that channel and what is our execution on it, and then what is going on in the ecosystem in order to get a clear view of that, and how do we pursue forward, not just on that channel, but on that channel given the changes in consumer behavior, privacy, the larger world that we live in. And you only do that by having the right types of partnerships, and that you treat your counterpart like partners. I don't think that sort of relationship, partner account lead on their own is viable anymore. You really need to have a consultative partner on the other side of things that is technical and wants to lead in and wants to understand your business and has the ability to transparently share their business. And how do you guys figure this out together? It's just too nuanced and complicated, and it's moving too fast not to do this in a partnership, building the pie sort of way. So that is what we look for first and foremost, and what we focus on, making sure that we have the right technical expertise on our side, and it's not just about repeating sales messaging that we get, or checking boxes on the X number of products they launch, but really making sure they understand our objectives, our learning roadmap, and we have one for them as well. We understand how they operate, how it makes it easier for them to get resources and support us, and that we're really acting like that true partnership on both sides of things versus someone just selling into us.
Gotcha. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's so critical. As in everything, it's still we're still human. We still want to collaborate together, even ourselves. So as you think about like the pandemic, and you mentioned this, and it's led to a rise in advertising, across retail media one, but also the CTV, advanced television space. Have you seen a change in kind of your advertising to reach your customers for your products like Claritin, Aleve, and others? Just curious on that.
Okay, so I think I mentioned it before, but there has been for a while a fallacy around a scarcity of a large amount of reach. I think while there has been adjustments to how people consume media, what we've had for quite some time now is 5 or 6 very large scale players that can reach a Super Bowl type audience each and every day of the year. When you have YouTube and Facebook, Instagram, and Amazon now with their Prime members and audiences and ad platforms, to Walmart, Twitter, Pinterest, Snap, just really large reach numbers. So I think being and working with those already scaled platforms has you covered. I think we, on an ongoing basis, now there's a pretty big shift in a condensed period of time, but we're always looking at understanding how consumers are shifting their behaviors and making sure that we respect what people are investing their time in and where they're spending that time, and that we have a presence there. But we also want to be honest and make sure we're not saying that we need to be somewhere where we want. It's the holiday times, and I have 2 kids, and we learned a lot over the last couple of weeks about need versus want, and a lot of things that some people say need is really want.
Yeah.
But I think what's really exciting is a large number of players are already scaled and they're going into new areas where we can actually carry forward some of the things that have worked in other channels and opportunities, but still stay with where people are going, be it in audio or more premium, larger screen devices, et cetera. We have the right core partners and the ability to kind of iterate off of that and leverage what we're doing today, because we were set up always to adjust to consumer behavior. So once it's sped up, it was just our speed to execute a plan that's already there. Yeah,
that totally makes sense. And yeah, just one other question on that front, I think would be valuable for the audience. So like, because there has been, some new apps and new ways to reach consumers that have been launched, and there will be more. So like, how do you make a sense, I guess, how do you decide, hey, we're going to go invest in TikTok, for example, like we're going to make that decision. Like, how do you evaluate these channels internally so that you can determine like that my consumers are there and I'm going to invest?
So I think the reach that we have right now, it's hard to say we need to be somewhere else because it's the only place we get reach or reach a subsegment of an audience. You look at what's already been scaled. So what we again look to do is say, look at the platform and is it ready for us to lean in and make an investment where at the very least we can learn and start to optimize and have it perform at least a level where we can get it to on par with some of the other channels within a reasonable timeline or path. And so we look at what targeting they offer, what are the ad formats, what optimizations and lever pulling and ability to how we buy, and is there measurement to know that we actually made it work. I was in a meeting one time and someone said, we should really be more open to doing experiments, even if there isn't measurement or attribution of the results. And at that point, it's not really an experiment if you don't get results, if you don't know whether it worked. It may be a strategic investment and part of your more holistic view of executing. But what we definitely want to make sure is we know where that partner stands, and we look at the people and do they have a good team on the other side that can work with us and figure it out while things are new for them. And then we look at on our side, how does this fit in with what we're doing? How incremental is it? How incremental is it now in the short term versus the long term versus other new things that we can do that are already on our roadmap? And then say, can we execute better and do things the way that we do things well, given where the platform is today, in terms of targeting and creative optimization, measurement, with our team, pulling those levers. And when those two fit and hit a minimum, it goes up in the prioritization. But we know no one wins if you spread yourself too thin and just try and check box and do everything. You're much better off of not doing that, not spending all your time arguing which channel is contributing. Is it the channel or is there execution? But being very methodical, thoughtful, being set up to know if you've done it well or how well your execution did versus the channel, and then going one by one, but in the right way versus just spray anywhere that getting a lot of buzz is on conferences, and it would look nice to make us feel good and make the awards for it. But if you could do that and also have it work and operationalize and drive the business and your mission, then even better.
Totally. Yeah, I agree. And the measurement is interesting because as we're engaged now with brands and publishers and that's this whole ecosystem of PII to PII data collaboration, I mean, that's a whole new world that's evolving, and the measurement of that is starting to evolve as well, which is very interesting. So, kind of wrapping up here, I think we're close to the time. I guess as your a recommendation, Paul, I guess to everyone here that's listening in, to companies who are trying to spend 2022 kind of moving forward and preparing. We all keep talking about this cookieless strategy and world that's evolving. Like, what would be some of your recommendations you would make to this audience?
So I would say, one is making sure you have the right technical expertise, be they consultants, be they key partners, as well as in-house. A lot of things that people may say are hard or impossible or can't be done right now. It's really just that it takes technical expertise to do them, and it's a level of complexity that wasn't there necessarily maybe a few years ago. So making sure you have the who right, and I would say too is making sure that you do the legwork early and the back of the napkin math. I've seen a lot of people and large companies, start with the technology and the solution, and there's been little thought to, hey, even if everything goes in our favor, is this even viable or to make sense as an investment? And what's going to be needed in year 1, year 2, year 3? How do we make sure as an organization we maintain that focus and follow through on it? And then Two is do the legwork, find opportunities for the right people to be in situations where they don't feel self-conscious about asking questions, and get them to a place where they're conversant in what you're doing, so everyone can put in the support that is needed. It's not going to be one team or just the marketing department, et cetera. You're going to need to have the CEO and CFO and a lot of people start to talk this language at least and understand it, and then break it into small goals and groups and parts of that project. You don't have to conquer the world in a day, and setting that expectation and taking it step by step and doing it well builds the right momentum, and I think puts you in a much better spot than looking at all you can do and having a million use cases and getting everyone excited about it and then under delivering.
Yeah, absolutely. Music to my ears. Like, focus on an initial use case, make that successful, crawl, walk, and then run in this world. So I really appreciate it. I guess we could, Matt, I think we have time for questions. I know there's some questions out there. So let's see here. And Matt, I guess I need to get you a connection to the Infosum office. I overheard you're close.
Yeah, we were joking with our friend Stu Coleman that we could almost we could almost kick a soccer ball, a football between where we are. And considering that the hotel Wi-Fi literally 90 seconds ago went unstable again, perfect timing. I was again thinking of just racing in between sessions to our office where we have real Wi-Fi.
Yeah, we could have had you over
here. But so this audience doesn't care about that though. So apologies. One thing, Greg, I don't know if you caught this one that just came in from Patrick. One quick question, Paul. Tough to throw a dart or pick one KPI, but in a world of, let's say, different ways wonderfully of keeping score beyond commercial or program ratings on 25 to 54 or 35 to 64 for the evening news back in the Stone Ages. Can you maybe give us a little inside baseball, a little behind the scenes around one brand, one example where there's a new KPI that everyone at Bayer and your agency and supplier partners have rallied around to kind of change the culture and change the rhythm of what success means for everything you guys do?
So I would say it'd be really hard to find, whether it's in sports or marketing or any organization, where team members are like, I am so upset that there's more accountability in this organization in terms of the decisions where people are investing their time and our resources, et cetera. So I think the starting place should always be is how do we maximize the amount of investment and in both dollars and budget resources, you name it, on things that actually will have a model that works for the business, in which it is driving the top and bottom line, and you're trying to do that as much as possible, because at the end of the day, if nothing that you're doing is able to do that, the scale and how long and how much you want to do it is going to have a short life, especially as more and more things are accountable and measurable by comparisons. Now, you don't need perfect measurement and you don't need everything to be profitable right away. There can be a balance of strategic, but I think it's also then saying, and ahead of time, managing those expectations and predicting how much is the right mix of those different objectives and metrics, and having a really high bar, and the onus on the person bringing in a new KPI, that is something that it's worth using and doing. What you find with any ad buying platform or algorithm, or any operation of a large group of people, and they're thinking about how I spend my time, if you put in a objective or a goal and you start with that and it's the wrong one and it's really meaningless and it's not driving the business and it's a vanity one, there's so many waterfall implications down the line, both it goes all the way down to morale of people and who are impacting the business and trying to make decisions in the right way when that happens. So I think that's really the way to go. It's one, making sure you have a core and a stable that's connected to the business, because that is the reality of marketing today. And then two, there might be softer metrics that might be predictive of that you might want to use. But there also might be some things that are more strategic and can get funded if you don't do it 100%, but have a certain amount. And you just want to make sure you're differentiating that, but making sure you have enough doing that makes sense from a business, because marketing is not necessarily this uncountable, unmeasurable cost center anymore. It has to be something that is part of and core to driving your business.
So that entire well thought answer, geez, I can't believe you didn't use the words click-through rate once in that response.
Click-through rate may be a metric that is predictive. I often find that, and we're seeing it now with crypto, some of the things that actually do have value, but wind up having such mass adoption and usage and misusage, can get a bum rap. But at some point, there are people that are just not talking about how they're using it or how they're doing it the right way, or talking about leveraging it. So I think with everything that really gets made fun of and seems absolutely silly and wrong, there's a starting point and a smaller group that may have started and are actually driving a lot of value from it. So I don't think it's end all be all, but I bet there are folks using clicks in ways that those who are everything to do with click are missing out on.
Totally.
To Rachel Pasqua, Dana Moon on our team seeing this live, when we start using the analogy of click-through rate in crypto, we will be sourcing Paul Gelb, Infosum, and Brent Innovators right here. That's brilliant. One last question before we get out here, Greg, if you don't mind, looking at a good one from Kwame here, and this is certainly something that should be pretty much copy paste for every panel for I don't know, forever. What is Paul? Can you speak to what Bear is doing to serve the underserved communities? And we've all seen through the last, let's call it 15 months, an appropriate uptick of awareness, interest, decision, and some action. Quoting Alec Baldwin and Glenn Ross, and knowing the marketing funnel like we all do, around better focusing on DE&I initiatives. Ironically, pun intended, not everyone that came out with proclamations, whether they're holding companies or others, have done the identity, attribution, and measurement yet to actually keep score on how they're doing against those press releases that were mentioned. A few have and are worthy of praise and appreciation that they've followed up and actually done what they've said they're going to do, and not just given lip service like so many have over the years. But can you speak at all to where that initiative sits within Bear Global, and how DE&I efforts weave into everything that you're doing and that you've spoken wonderfully about today with us?
So I think one of the really rewarding parts about working at Bear is being able to use what is a very niche and technical expertise to deliver on goals and impacts and at scale that really is beneficial to the community that we live in and the world on pretty large goals. I will say, live in New Jersey right now. There was a time that Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg wrote a pretty large check to the Newark school system and just went right into action. And I think it's pretty well known and reported on follow-ups that not very much happened with that pretty significant and really quick to be executed action. So I think, again, while you should look at corporations and what they say versus what they do, but I would not undervalue the need to have clear metrics and goals first, and starting out with what the problem is and what the metrics are going to be to how you're addressing it, then looking at ways that you can measure and track, is your investment working, how to optimize it, and then being transparent again with your customers and the community in which you're a player in on how you're doing against those goals. I think Patagonia has probably set the benchmark there in terms of being incredibly transparent on its impact on the environment. So what I think you'll see is that if you read our earnings report, there have been goals set in this area as well as in sustainability. Talking to HR and global and various executive stakeholders in both these areas, it's top in terms of priority and attention and focus, and recent announcement on a significant investment made in sustainability and our impact on the environment today. And I think you're going to be hearing more and more about DE&I now that we've set the metrics and are similarly putting a lot of those things in motion. It's just the sustainability. I kicked off first, and we're a big ship and a big company, and once you get in the right direction, it can do a lot of good things, particularly if there's a port where it can dock and unload. But I think setting those metrics and everything I've seen today, preparing the company to come through and follow through, we're seeing with sustainability, and you'll see down the line in this area as well.
Great stuff. As we know, and say all the time in sales, but also in life, it's all about the follow-up.